one yet. You guys gave it away twice. That's okay, I gave it away. I wasn't
Vivian's
sure.
doing the standard 5-minute formats.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever tried anything like this. My first time at Simpson. And we're on.
We got this.
All right. Hi guys. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. How many of you have heard, watched, read? A lot of you. Okay, great, excellent. Then you're going to get all the jokes. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I am invited here not because I know much about it or about extremophiles, but because I turned 42 this year, and 42. This is the 40-second synopsis, and it happens to also be the answer to life, the universe, and everything. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, for those of you who have not read it, is a quirky sci-fi tale. Started as a radio series, thanks. And I got lost there. Okay, well what happens is the Earth gets destroyed because they're making an intergalactic highway. Thanks, you guys, I'm losing them. Luckily, the two people get saved from Earth. One of them is saved by this wonderful alien, Ford, and he inserts a babblefish into this guy's ear. So a babblefish happens to be in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It says it's probably the oddest living thing in the universe. And I would like to counter that and say we have plenty of very odd things right here. We have penguins, and penguins like to swim, and they're birds, and that's pretty odd. They also spend a lot of time in freezing cold, and I don't know why they would do that, and they look miserable protecting their eggs, and they go and fish. But they're definitely not the weirdest thing on the planet. There's watermelon snow, and you would think that it's called watermelon snow because it is pink, but you'd be wrong, because it's called watermelon snow because when you step on it, it smells like watermelon. There are also wood frogs, and wood frogs freeze solid in the winter. They completely stop breathing, they freeze, and then in the spring they're fine again. They just hop off when the lake unfreezes. That's weird. Too cold there. We're going to go to the very hot. The Pompeii worm likes to have his tail on the hot smoker vents at the bottom of a mile of ocean. And it's 140 degrees there, which is really ridiculously hot. We didn't think anything could survive anything that hot. The Yeti crab lives very near that. Out by Easter Island, and they grow their own food on the hair on their weird arms. They're also blind because it's very dark down there. You can also get extremophiles in extreme environments like volcanoes. The Russian fireberry can double its colony size in half an hour. Wow. Very prolific. Hot sulfur springers you can find in your hot tub. And there are the rocky lichen. These live up to 7 miles underground. They can survive, of course, with no light in the middle of rocks. And one of my favorites is snotites. You would never know they were there except for they put holes in hikers' clothing. And then there are the very, very sturdy ones. These guys thrive in radiation, and my favorite of all times and many of yours, the water bear. Tardigrades can live in the vacuum of space. But who cares, right? These are extreme organisms that live in extreme environments. Well, astrobiologists care, and astrobiologists care because they're looking for life on other planets besides Earth. We have found a ton of other planets around other stars. I think we are at, what is this one?
Many thousands?
Yeah, we're at almost 4,000 planets we found around other stars. But we don't even have to go that far because right here in our own solar system, we have found really habitable places for life. So we just found, just 6 months ago, a lake of liquid water underneath the surface of Mars. This is the South Pole of Mars. ESA just had an orbiter going around. They looked in radio waves and saw a lake. What? It doesn't even have to be a planet. It can be an asteroid. This is Ceres. We just went by there pretty recently. Dwarf planet. Turns out a dwarf planet, yes. Thank you. And the largest asteroid. There's a layer of water ice. I mean, that's potentially habitable. Enceladus is one of my favorite. It has volcanoes of water that shoot out into space, and they happen to have organic materials in them. Like, this is a really interesting place to look for life. So there should be aliens everywhere, right? But they're not. Not that we know yet. We have not found any signs of life yet. There are, Mars 2020 is going to actually be doing some really good looking. There's some much better ideas about how to find it. luckily the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy says, don't worry, don't panic. That's the #1 rule of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and always bring your towel wherever you go. So that's all I got. And because I'm an astronomer and I know very little about extremophiles, honesty, and because I put this together last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, we're going to do a game. We're going to play a game. Because that's what I'm better at. I'm much better at games than lectures. This seemed to be your favorite. Go for it. If you would just take one, don't think too hard about it. What's it?
Can I have the fireberry one?
Oh man, now you got it. Okay, just pick one.
Should we just?
Yeah, pick one and pass them on.
You're not doing well at random.
Yeah, just close your eyes and pick one and pass them on.
Oh, darn. Oh, well.
Totally not.
Okay.
I mean,
Tardigrade bath?
No.
I work with amateur astronomers, and I try to help the amateur astronomers talk to the public about
Ooh, you got some
what they
types.
answer questions.
Strain 121.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. So, everybody has their extremophile. These are all organisms that are found here on Earth. It's the only place in the whole universe we've ever found life. It's still right here. We have this one example of what life looks like. So when we are looking out into the world to see what life elsewhere might look like, we look at the most extreme places here on Earth, is what I meant to say in there. So who has an organism that likes a whole lot of sunlight? Anybody? You look on the back, it'll tell you something about them. Yeah, watermelon snow only. Yeah, you hold up your thing so everybody can see them. Water bear likes everything. Very friendly guy. Who has an organism that can live with no sunlight? Yeah, we didn't know that for a long time. We didn't know. Yeah, yeah, the Yeti crab. How about who has an organism that can live under really extreme pressures? Yeah, strain 121. We talked about a lot of these.
Where the line? Oh, strain 121
Yeah,
is my new band
there
name.
should be yeah. So who's got one that can live under really acidic conditions? This is something that is new to us. Yeah, yeah. Right. So we have found organisms that can live in so many different environments. Who has one that can live with no water?
low.
Oh.
Low or no?
No water. Okay. This, I think, is why he thought towels would be the best thing to have, because literally the only thing we have found that every single living organism needs on Earth to survive and thrive and reproduce. Like the water bear can live for 3, 10, 15 years without water, but it's not making babies. So, in order to reproduce, every single organism on Earth needs water. So that, when we are out looking for life on other planets, we are out there looking for water, because that's the only thing that we know of. That's our best guess at this point. Liquid water.
What about other possible organic solvents? Like I know, what is it, Triton? They've looked at like lakes of methane and hydrocarbons. What are your thoughts on that? Sorry.
Totally possible. Absolutely 100% possible, right? We don't know.
Supercritical xenon.
Xenon?
Supercritical xenon.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why there would not be life that could. There are some reasons, right? So you want some, we don't know what life might look like elsewhere, but there are some things that are easier formed together than others. So there are a few constraints there that we think we can probably safely say there's not going to be radioactive life, because it doesn't last very long. Yeah.
Sort of along those lines, do you think at some point we might have to redefine life?
I love
Because we discover something that's like, well, this is,
We don't really even
how do we know?
have a good definition of life.
It's true,
now.
you don't have a great one.
Great.
You can
in my
ask
head,
lots
it's
of
very
Reproducing
fancy for
isn't
computers.
reproducing like
Are viruses alive?
Crystals
We already
reproduce,
sorted
right?
down.
Lots of things reproduce without our technical, what we think of as living. Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
viruses or viri count as alive?
That's that.
Yes, it's like-
Yes, they're alive. Are they? I think. Yeah, they are alive. I think
It's
that
kind of
that's,
an
we,
edge
it,
case,
it's an
though.
yeah, it's kind of in between, but,
Which makes Jamie's point, there's
Yeah, we
bound to
don't
be
have
a lot
like-
of in-between.
yeah,
Like any definition that we say, this is what life is,
Yes.
then there'll be something that we
Right.
know is alive that doesn't fit the definition.
Yeah.
yes.
And then something that we know isn't alive that does fit it. So we haven't really quite settled on the, it's like, you
Yeah.
know when you see it type of
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I know,
Yes.
we see it.
It's tricky, right? And different cultures have had way different definitions of what life is.
Yup. I was thinking that too.
Wait, what? So do you?
Porn, I know,
Oh,
that's from the original. This is the Supreme Court case.
Yeah,
I
totally with
Yeah,
you on
I
that
know.
one.
Okay. Porn, life,
Hardly
Have
ever.
extreme apology.
That's another thing people try
But
to
that's what he
define.
said.
no,
You
I
gotta
remember
About
find
10
it.
to 1 last night, I thought a lot about it.
I think one other interesting thing is that,
For artificial
you know,
intelligence.
because water-based life is what we
Different
know.
ways of looking at it, but-
When we're, all those other planets, we found thousands of
Data
planets
on
orbiting
Star
other
Trek.
stars,
Yeah.
and the ones we're really trying to zero in on are the ones that might have liquid water because they might have life.
Right, yeah,
They might
nearby
have
ones,
life
because we can.
similar to our life.
Right.
Mhm.
They might have life as we know it.
I would love,
That's
has
the
anyone
only
done
way we
the
know.
Drake equation for a talk? Because that would be so fun.
That would be
I
cool.
did that.
You did,
You did.
okay, good, yeah. Yeah, that's another great one, check, yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, there's
Good
a
on
lot
you
of, the how life starts is a pretty interesting conversation. Yeah,
Well, there's a mommy and a daddy.
yeah, right.
Ooh, not at
Necessarily. Sometimes there's two mommies, but somewhere there was a sperm.
In humans.
all. In humans, audience, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to purposely contaminate other foods or other parts of the solar system?
Yeah, we think a lot about that when we go. Now, this is something I thought a lot
Biocontamination,
about,
I get it.
biocontamination of when we go to other places. So, yeah, water bears could hop on and ride to Mars with us and possibly do just fine there for a very long time. I mean, I think what's really, yeah, we have to think a lot about that. They try their very best, and it's interesting now with some commercial space flight. It's not gonna, there are gonna have to be more different rules set up than we've had before. Because usually countries have been very strict with how they're doing that because most of the funding has been governmental. But now we're going to the moon on a commercial space flight, which is pretty fascinating. But like, oh, did they wipe their feet before they left? Like, oh, you don't want to contaminate stuff. What's going to be really interesting is when we do find life on Mars. I'm guessing might be our first. It probably will look not like an alien, right? It's probably going to be some microscopic something that we find, some evidence of some form of organic life. It's going to be fascinating, the implications of whether it is like us or whether it is fundamentally different than us. Because if it is different than us, then two life forms evolved in our solar, like if we find life on Mars, that would mean that two distinct life forms evolved in one solar system that just would expand our idea of how much life would be out there, right? If we come from the same place, if we are similar, that means it traveled here. And the implications are that like life can then seed in the universe, and that's fascinating. Both of those are really, I think, pretty fundamentally deep
Yeah.
thoughts.
What?
Alright.
Oh,
What, last question.
what are your thoughts on Europa? My money's on Europa.
Yes.
I
You
Yeah.
agree?
I just think it's curious. It's a curious.
Isn't Europa the one where they sent the thing through the plume and they found some like complex hydrocarbons? This was like last summer, right?
Yes, that was actually Enceladus. Is
Was
where
it
they
really?
yeah. So that was on Saturn's moon Enceladus. They flew through the plumes.
Yeah.
Europa, they're sending a Clipper mission there, and it's going to tell us a lot. Now, most of these are covered with like, 20 miles of either thick ice or maybe rocks on the top. But before you're going to get to anything underneath, which is tricky, right? So how are we going to know what's under there? The plumes are awesome. That really helps because it's coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
What is Europa?
What's that?
What is Europa?
It's a moon of Saturn. Yeah.
was in 2001. All these worlds are yours except Europa.
Except
Attempt
Europa.
no landings there.
Yeah, yeah, I love exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. That's where.
cool.
All right, well, thank you.